Hello, good afternoon. It's News Hour live on GBC News, your news and governance channel. My name is Shirley Annan. Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, 33 civilian sites have been hit over the last 24 hours, with reports suggesting that more than 30 civilians are dead. Reports from foreign media indicates Russia's military forces targeting dozens of civilian sites. Russian forces have closed in on the capital Kiev after rapidly advancing from multiple fronts in the north, east and south of Ukraine since the invasion began on Thursday. Oil prices surged, with Brent reaching $100 a barrel for the first time since 2014 on Thursday, with concerns that this could disrupt global energy supplies. On the phone lines is the Dean of the Ghana Armed Forces Command and Staff College, Dr. Vladimir Intridanso, to help us understand these issues. So what do you think is the impact this is going to have on global economies like Ghana?
The economic impact is going to be felt throughout the world. It puts sanctions on one country like China. It means those other countries allied to the trading system will also be affected. Ghana had a problem very recently when Gazprom wanted to sell us cheap gas. But because Gazprom was listed under the sanctions, the previous sanctions, Ghana couldn't benefit from that cheap gas. So it means we are affected. And so all other things concerning global exchanges will be affected, including crude oil. And now we are a net importer of oil, and so it will affect our economy. Prices are going to rise up, indexes are going to go downwards. So the global impact is very, very dire.
Okay, so at this point, are there any measures the UN Security Council can employ to stop the invasion from escalating into a full-blown war? You called it a war.
Yes, the point is this, that we must understand why the war in the first place and why the UN was underneath it. Where diplomacy fails, war inevitable. And the eastward expansion of NATO has been the concern of Russia since 1997. And NATO continues to exist. The UN knows it. And the UN didn't use diplomacy to ensure that NATO has no business existing, because the Warsaw Pact is no more. And they are pushing eastward. And in international relations, security is very, very important. And therefore, you create a security dilemma. When there is a security dilemma, such wars or such reactions are just inevitable. You may blame Russia, yes. For example, I didn't think that they were going to actually invade. I thought it was a deterrent kind of thing. But unfortunately, they are now going into a kind of compelling. They are compelling Ukraine back down. They are compelling NATO. They are daring NATO, which is very unfortunate. But that is when you create a security dilemma. The UN was impotent. And we have created a UN who we don't respect. The big powers don't respect the UN. China refused to obey the ICJ ruling quite recently on the South China Sea. The US itself went to Iraq without obeying the UN. The US also, again, went in 1982 to go and overthrow a government. Understand the people of Ghana were not more than 10,000, and because they said they were going socialist, the US said you can't have socialism in my backyard. Can you imagine? It was a sovereign country. The UN sent troops to go and kill their prime minister. So it's like we have a UN which nobody obeys. So when it comes to the other side, then we are criticizing. So the big powers are to blame for most of the hiccups that we are having in the world.
Since the big powers do not respect the UN, what do we do globally? What do we do as leaders?
The small countries always pander to the whims of either side, especially they pander to the whims of the West. I wish the group of 77, I wish the group of 20, the non-aligned countries, to gather courage and restructure the UN. To gather courage and tell the big powers in their face. The UN. Because many people feel that the UN has been belted under the hypnosis of the West. If that is the perception, and we continue to support west or east, whatever it is, then the Security Council will be hopeless. Today, the Security Council will only condemn Russia. They will ask Russia to go back, as per the charter, which is normal. But then it doesn't work. So what we can do now is for the smaller countries to speak up, to use diplomacy, to show the world that they also matter. Other than that, the structure of the UN will not allow the UN Security Council to do anything.
There's something I saw on Twitter yesterday about AU condemning Russia for invading Ukraine, and there were calls by some civilians for the AU to stay out of this because we couldn't stand the powers of Russia. What do you think about that, please?
Well, it's normal because the international system has rules, laws, and regulations. It has international law. And so obviously the AU has to condemn what has happened. They have to condemn. But what Russia did in international law is unacceptable. It's not acceptable at all that we invade a member country of the UN. I want to stress that. The condemnation is necessary, but very, very weak. It doesn't change anything.
Yeah. So there are lots of people who are concerned that this is all arising because Ukraine is partly joining NATO or decided to join NATO. And people are wondering why NATO, US and the UK have not stepped in yet. To you, according to you?
They cannot step in because Ukraine is not part of NATO. And that's exactly what Russia is concerned about. You join NATO, and NATO is a military organization. What is it doing in this world? NATO against who? Against Russia, because when NATO started in 1947, 48, 49, thereabouts, and Russia also had the Warsaw Pact. Two huge military organizations which could have fought a war at any time. Now there is no Warsaw Pact. So what is NATO doing? Why is NATO gathering more members? And for what? Is it an economic organization? Then we would have understood. It is not an economic organization. It's a military organization. So if Ukraine joins, then the border between Russia and NATO is the Ukraine border. And Russia says, if you do that, then you can put missiles even on the soil close to me. And that's dangerous. So NATO stopped. Since 1997, NATO hasn't stopped. So NATO could not join. America could not come on behalf of Ukraine, because they are not part of it. There's no treaty enjoining them to join the war. Be it as it may, if they had joined right now, we would have gone into the Third World War. So Russia has been warning, and warning Europe especially. Because Russia would have moved troops to all parts of Europe. I don't say they will win, but then the whole of Europe will be destroyed.
Before you go, there are calls for Ghanaians to be repatriated from Ukraine. Is it too early, or it's in order for us to bring our students, especially back home?
These things don't work that way. It's not magical. The Ukrainian airspace is closed.
Yeah.
So I understand them. They are hysterical. They are calling for repatriation. A war situation is not a good situation at all. A war situation creates a whole lot of psychological problems, peace problems, and a whole lot. What we can do is to pursue, and I know there is a line which the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has created, and they could always link up.
We've been speaking to the Dean of the Ghana Armed Forces Command and Staff College, Dr. Vladimir Nchidanso, on the crisis in Ukraine. So in news, a Ghanaian student in Ukraine, Mr. Joseph Yangsen, is appealing to Ghanaians and politicians not to play politics with the current impasse between Ukraine and Russia, but rather find ways of evacuating their compatriots in Ukraine immediately the opportunity presents itself. Mr. Yangsen says for now, they have been relocated to a bunker of their school's basement. Mr. Yangsen spoke of panic buying, sleeplessness, and the hope that they would soon be evacuated to safety.
A good ordeal for the past 12 hours, if I may say, from last night. We've had a very bad experience. There have been several bombardments in my city. Yesterday, when I was giving the update, it wasn't so. But then for the past 24 hours, a lot of things has changed.
As Ghanaians keep calling for the immediate evacuation of their compatriots in the beleaguered Ukraine, following Russian airstrikes and a possible degeneration of the situation, both sides of parliament have supported calls for money to be made available for such evacuation. A Ghanaian student in Ukraine, Mr. Joseph Yankson, says life has come to a halt as they await some good news from the governments of Ukraine and Ghana.
Yesterday, it was panic buying of foodstuffs and groceries. Before I could get to the supermarket, almost everything was off the shelf. The shelves were virtually empty. And then the only things that were left were items that on a normal day we wouldn't settle for. But then because of this situation, we have to settle for such items. And then there's but on a normal day, these are not things that we want to buy. All the shops have been empty. And then on receiving funds from home, somebody I always pass through to receive funds from my family. I've not been able to contact him throughout yesterday. My family wants to send me something, but then they are unable to do it because this person who is supposed to receive the money on my behalf is unavailable at the moment. So we are kind of left stranded. Even though I have money on my Visa card, I'm unable to withdraw because the Ukrainians have withdrawn all the money in the ATM systems. When you go to an ATM machine, there's no money in it. But in this situation, we have to move with cash. We don't need our Visa cards for anything. They've asked us to go and fend for ourselves, buy food, come and store. So I don't know. We hope this ends soon. But if it doesn't end, we are going to be here and then we might run out of food. And then shops are not working. All the shops are currently not working.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration has given the assurance that all efforts are being made to ensure the safety and security of Ghanaians in Ukraine. Meanwhile, President Akufo-Addo has expressed concern about the impact of the Russian invasion on the safety and evacuation of Ghanaians. In that regard, he has urged over 1,000 students and other Ghanaians in Ukraine to seek help at government places of shelter, including Ghana's mission and the diplomatic buildings of countries with whom Ghana has a bilateral agreement, as well as properties belonging to ECOWAS and the African Union. The president said that this was to ensure their temporary safety as the government engages the authorities, the relevant diplomatic missions and honorary council on further steps. Recent coups in the Sahel region and the sense of insecurity it generates have necessitated the implementation of the 2017 ruling of the International Tribunal of the Law of the Sea between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. An ongoing meeting between the two countries will operationalize and reaffirm land boundaries for common interest. The Deputy Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Ms. Benito Usubio, has called for collaboration between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire to ensure proper management of their boundaries. The International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea ruled in favor of Ghana after a protracted maritime boundary dispute between the country and neighboring Cote d'Ivoire. However, there have been delays in implementation of the ruling. The talks between both countries are focused on issues of cross-border cooperation in security, social, economic and other issues of common interest. Addressing the two-day meeting in Accra, National Coordinator of the Ghana Boundary Commission, Major General Emmanuel Cote, said there have been some challenges, including boundary pillars and landmarks, which both countries have to develop a framework towards addressing.
The Commission has over the few years been engaging our neighboring countries to build the necessary relationship, goodwill and consensus to enable Ghana live peaceful with its neighbors, including La Cote d'Ivoire, based on an agreed, defined international boundaries.
Deputy Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Mr. Benito Usubio, reminded stakeholders on the need to take into consideration the human interest in the process.
All efforts towards boundary management are done in the interest of the people of the countries involved, and especially those directly affected along our boundary communities. Achieving all the set targets for this collaboration between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire cannot be done solely by the boundary commissions of both countries. Effort and support from various partners and stakeholders from both countries are key. I admonish you all to keep rendering support to the two boundary commissions of Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire so as to ensure that our common boundaries are well managed and protected.
Executive Secretary of Cote d'Ivoire's National Border Commission, Mr. Diakalidia Konate, said the discussions will enhance trade between the two countries. The meeting is expected to end on February 25, 2022. You're watching News Live on GBC News, your news and governance channel. Amid ongoing consultation by the government to get the controversial electronic transfer levy Elevy Bill passed, growing agitation within industrial unions over working conditions and calls for improved standards of living, there are concerns from some quarters that government may struggle to honor some financial obligations, including remuneration of employees in the next 3 months, if critical steps are not taken. Specifically on the e-levy, majority MPs have cited numerous intervention programs that may fail to be realized if the estimated 7 billion cedis in revenue is not mobilized. On the phone is Dr. Eric Odosai, Governance and Public Financial Management Expert and the Director General of the Internal Audit Agency, to help broaden the scope on this discussion. Good afternoon, Doctor.
Good afternoon.
Now, looking at the happenings in the economy, there is the likelihood that government may not be able to honor its financial obligations. What do you think about this?
Thank you very much. I think government should be able to honor most of its financial obligations, except that going into the last quarter of 2022, that is where government will suffer. Because when you look at the 2022 budget, especially compensation of employees, which is the salaries and emoluments of public sector employees, it forms only 7.1% of GDP and 26.1% of projected total expenditure. And we are only in the first quarter. Even though government has not been able to get the e-levy bill passed, there are other revenue enhancement measures in the 2022 budget that government can start implementing once the budget. Because the revision of the flat rate VAT scheme, the import benchmark review, and then the relief to small-scale gold miners, the review of property rates, the review of fees and charges, removal of road tolls, expanding the tax network, are all measures government can put in place in the first quarter and the second quarter of 2022 to mobilize revenue while steps are taken to get Parliament to pass the e-levy bill into an act. So I think government will be able to survive in the short term, but in the medium to long term, steps must be taken to ensure that either the e-levy bill is passed or other alternative measures are put in place to ensure that government revenue is shored up, so that by the third and fourth quarter, government will get money. What we are doing at the Internal Audit Agency and other revenue agencies are that we are plugging, we are working to sanitize the system to ensure that every government comes into the consolidated fund and every single cedi that is spent in areas that will benefit the economy. So that is my view on it.
As public sector workers, should we be concerned that government may not be able to pay salaries over the next 3 months? Obviously.
We should not be concerned at all, especially in the short to medium term. We should rather be concerned if we enter into the third and the fourth quarter of the year when the e-levy bill has not been passed. But I would expect government to have a plan B in case the e-levy bill is not passed, so the economy will be able to run. But at least in the first and then second quarter of 2022, government should be able to run, because after all, government expenditure compensation or the salaries of public sector employees annually is only 26.1% of projected total expenditure, and this is 7.1% of GDP. There are other revenue sources that government can use to pay for public sector wages and salaries. What government cannot do in the first quarter and second quarter, in my view, is to incur or spend on capital expenditure. That government cannot do, and that is the challenge. Otherwise, the recurrent expenditure on compensation, government should be able to manage in the first and second quarter of 2022 because other revenue sources are being mobilized once the 2022 budget has been approved by Parliament.
The government augments the incoming challenge in remuneration. Hello, Doctor.
Hello.
Yes, I'm asking what measures governments can take to augment the challenges in remuneration.
Challenges of remuneration, I think government will have to continue to negotiate with the key actors. The issue of UTAC is clear for everybody to understand. Market survey report has been sent to them. So what I would say government should do is government should just continue to enhance or to implement the revenue enhancement measures in the 2022 budget. And I can tell you that if all those revenue enhancement measures are implemented to the latter, government revenue will increase. Ghana does not need to go to IMF, in my view. I think that there are a lot of revenue opportunities in this country which can be mobilized without necessarily burdening the average Ghanaian. And while that is mobilized, we should be able to rationalize public sector salaries and then negotiate with the key leaders of labor unions and ensure that is able to meet them at their point of need. But I also have a caution to public sector workers. In as much as government is working to pay for your salaries and the demands that they bring to government, they should improve their performance, and then there should be effective performance management so that government will see value for money in the services rendered by public sector workers. So that people must go to work at 8, be behind their seats, work and then close at 5 p.m. and then ensure that at least their productivity is very high. So once we are able to connect productivity to the payment of salaries, I think government would work very hard to meet all of our public officers at our point of need.
Thank you very much, Doctor. That's all time would allow. I've been speaking to Dr. Eric Odurosai. He is a governance and public financial manager on the remuneration of public sector workers in the next 3 months. The government of Japan has provided a grant facility totaling $269,141 to 3 district assemblies and direct grant assistance for grassroots human security projects. The grant, according to the Japanese government, is to help improve the living standards of the inhabitants in the beneficial communities.
The 3 assemblies whose proposals were considered under the Grants Assistance for Grassroots Human Security Project were the German South Municipal Health Assembly, which was given an amount of $90,340 to build a health center at Bibianiha. $90,426 has been earmarked for the construction of a CHIPS compound at Amankwa in the Sunafo South District in the Hafu region and the construction of a classroom in the Chifu Etimokwa district in the Central region, valued at $88,375. The projects in the selected assemblies, according to the government of Japan, are expected to improve the livelihood of the over 17,000 people in the targeted assemblies. Representatives of the beneficial assemblies were grateful to Japan for the support. They, however, promised to use the grant for the purposes for which the monies were provided for the 3 districts. Japan's ambassador to Ghana, Mr. Mochizuki Hisanabu, spoke to GBC News.
There are a lot of proposals from various communities in the country. Then we have selected 3 communities in 3 different regions simply because of the good proposals they have assure the sustainability of the project.
Each year, under the Grant Assistance for Grassroots Human Security Project, the government of Japan provides funding to support between 5 and 8 projects to empower communities in Ghana. Gifty AJ, GBC News, Accra.
Many Ghanaians are booking their tickets to Spain under the Trawenum Nako Spain promotion. Rose Ichia from Tuba in Accra and Aisha Zakari from Nima are winners of the 5th edition, while Joseph Opunifimpong from Ejuso in the Ashanti region and Peace Avedida from Tema in the Greater Accra region have just won the 6th edition.
For the past 3 months, hundreds of lucky Ghanaians have won in the Trawenum Nako Spain promotion. The promotion from GB Foods seeks to reward consumers of its Gino and Pomo range of products. In all, 10 ultimate winners will have the opportunity to travel to Spain with their partners in an all-expenses paid promo. While in Spain, the winners will have an opportunity to watch La Liga matches from the VIP stand. This batch of winners now brings the total number of ultimate winners to 10. They are the lucky ones to embark on the trip to Spain with a partner of their choice. The general manager of GB Foods, Mr. David Aflu, congratulated all the winners for their participation and support in making the promotion a huge success.
For our consumers in Ghana, we want to thank you for your participation in this promotion, and we want to say Gino really cares, Gino is grateful. Thank you very much.
The chief executive of GB Foods African region, Mr. Viseng Bosch, also thanked Ghanaians for the massive participation in the promotion.
Consumers are the most important thing we have. This is very important for us. We spend a lot of efforts to try to make our consumers happy, trying to develop the best product for them, and trying to make sure that Gino is their most loved brand.
In addition to this, 153 persons are receiving prizes such as fridges, flat-screen TVs, smartphones, PS5, gas cookers, blenders and original La Liga jerseys in prize presentations happening across the country.
This is News Hour live on GBC News, your news and governance channel. We take a break. We'll be back with more news. Please stay.
Hello, you're watching the business news with me, Esther Aidu Ohumeu. The African Chamber for Trade, ACT, and a group of company executives called the Business Executive have met in Accra to discuss how to take advantage of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement.
The Leadership and Networking Workshop allowed participants to examine challenges facing their various businesses in Ghana and find solutions to them. They also discussed ways members can support one another in business and find new ways to leverage on opportunities presented by the AFCFTA. Speaking on the topic linking on to leadership advantages to create and deliver value for constructive changes in the fast-paced 21st century, Professor Mrs. Goski Alabi, a member of the African Chamber for Trade, ACT, stressed on what she calls the 3 Cs, that is competition, customers and change.
Organizations and institutions are your customers, and how you manage them would go a long way to affect your leadership. When it comes to the competition and when it comes to change, often the customer may not know what they want, with the exception of, say, regulatory bodies, so forth and so on. So we need to think ahead for the customer based on changing trends, based on changing demographies and a number of behavioral trends in the environment specifically, but also based on the competition.
The host of the chief executives at the forum feel Ghana's government must do more to create the needed environment for private businesses to thrive, for more jobs to be created. The forum was also used to inaugurate Ghana's chapter of the Business Executive.
Still on trade, importers do not expect a reduction in the price of imported goods despite a proposed 30% reduction in the invoice of general goods and a 10% discount for imported vehicles. They say that taxes, fees and charges and the depreciation of the cedi is likely to erode the gains of the reduction. Government has reviewed the 2019 decision that allowed a 50% tax waiver on imported goods and 30% on cars. After months of agitation and weeks of consultation with the country's business community on the benchmark values reduction policy, government has finally settled on a 30% discount for all goods and 10% for vehicles. This follows engagement with relevant unions who were against a complete removal of the 50% reduction.
People are confusing the reduction of 30% of the invoice value to be a reduction of duty. No, rather the duty is going to go up, but it's not going to go up as much as it would have been if the 50% have been totally reversed. It means that if your invoice value is 100,000, under the present dispensation, 50% will be applied. It means that the invoice value will come to 50,000 before they take the duty.
Reduction, importers do not expect any major reduction in imported goods. Samson Awingobet is the Executive Secretary of the Importers and Exporters Association.
2 years ago, the dynamics, the conditions that was prevailing, that you gave benchmark value discount to the business community is still even worsening. As you speak, dollar is in the bank, in the commercial rate, is about 6.3, 6.4. Cannot tell the price will increase. But there's cost element. As you speak, petroleum product has gone up, transport fare has gone up by 15%, isn't it? And so I strongly believe that we are at the situation whereby all of us will have to discipline ourselves, isn't it?
The idea behind the reduction was to increase tariff at the ports and ultimately increase government revenue, while importers and exporters, freight forwarders, as well as the Ghana Union of Traders Association praised the government for the policy, which led to a reduction in the cost of doing business in Ghana. Groups such as the Association of Ghana Industries were concerned about the adverse effects of the policy on the competitiveness of their products. Nevertheless, government went ahead with its implementation. And that's all for business. Thanks for watching.